40 design firms in Japan went bankrupt in the first half of this year, more than 2.6 times the same period last year. But this isn't just a story about the design industry. I see it as the first clear sign that AI replacing human work has finally started to show up in hard bankruptcy statistics. Today, let's dig into this news.
Hello everyone, I'm Ty, with 31 years in the semiconductor industry. Today, I'm not covering fabs or process equipment. I'm covering the sharp rise in design firm bankruptcies. By the end of this video, you'll have a clearer view of what AI actually replaces and how to face this shift, with my own experience mixed in. Please stick with me to the end. As usual, let's start with a familiar example. Imagine a dry cleaner in your neighborhood that people have loved for decades. Drop off a dress shirt and it comes back crisp and beautiful. The owner is at the iron early every morning and takes absolute pride in the finish. The skill is genuine and there are plenty of regulars. That's the shop. Then, at some point, things start to change. High-performance washer-dryers spread into every home, and wrinkle-free shirts that barely need ironing become normal. People who used to visit the shop once a week can now get a good enough finish at the push of a button at home. And it costs less than the shop, with no waiting for pickup. Of course, compared with a professional finish, there's a difference. The stiffness of the collar, the sharpness of the creases, anyone who knows will spot it instantly. But for most people, this is good enough. And so, without the shop's skill declining and without anyone doing anything wrong, the reasons to pay the shop quietly disappeared. And the first to struggle isn't the specialist handling luxury suits. It's the small shop that made its living on everyday dress shirts. Lose just a handful of regulars, and the business no longer works. From here, let's look at how this simplified story is actually playing out in the real world. According to Tokyo Shoko Research, a credit research firm, there were 40 bankruptcies in Japan's design industry in the first half of 2026, up 166.6% from 15 in the same period last year. It's the first time the first half has topped 40 since 2012, when it hit 45. That's 14 years. The survey covers bankruptcies with debts of 10 million yen or more, and includes firms doing graphic design, interior design, and similar work. If this pace continues, the annual total could exceed the 80 cases seen in 2011. In other words, this isn't temporary noise. It's showing up in the numbers as a clear change of direction. The breakdown tells you a lot about what these numbers really are. Of the 40 companies that went under, 30 had debts between 10 and 50 million yen, 75% of the total, and 36 had fewer than 5 employees, a full 90%. In other words, the ones failing are overwhelmingly small operators. 3 reasons are given for the increase. First, client companies bringing design work in-house, driven by generative AI and design software. Second, the shift from print media to digital media. And third, worsening business results at the client companies themselves. Not all of it is AI's doing. Still, the fact that in-house shift, backed by generative AI, was named in a research report as one of the reasons for bankruptcy, that itself carries real weight, I feel. From here, let me go into my own reading of this. In public discussion, this news tends to get framed as AI starting to take designers' jobs. But what caught my eye is that 90% of the failures had fewer than 5 employees. AI's impact is quietly showing up first where the financial cushion is thinnest. I think this is only the prologue. After 31 years in this industry, here's what I believe. AI doesn't take away occupations. More precisely, it takes away the work inside an occupation that no human needs to do. If you work at a company, you've probably felt it at least once. Is this really a job for a human being? The semiconductor industry has a surprising amount of that kind of work. Registering part numbers, registering process flows, linking materials, transcribing data into systems, requesting approvals, notifying related departments. None of it creates value in the product itself. Yet on the ground, it eats up an astonishing amount of time. Your workplace almost certainly has the same thing under a different name.
Once agentic AI spreads, I expect this work to be the first to change. Read the specification, check the differences against past products, enter the required fields, link the materials and process steps, check for contradictions, and push it all the way through to the approval request. The human only checks at the end. That world is not a distant future at all, I think.
The other thing I felt from this news is that the reason to pay for design is starting to change. In the past, you outsourced because you couldn't design. But now, even someone who just started using AI can produce a website, a banner, an image. Compared with a professional, there's a gap. Even so, for many companies, the quality is reaching the point where it feels good enough. So the question isn't whether AI has surpassed professionals. It's that the reason to pay for design itself has shrunk. It's the same structure as the dry cleaner. And this structure won't stop at the design industry. I believe the same thing is coming to one industry after another. The argument that we're fine because AI still can't match a professional may actually be missing the point entirely. That said, I'm not pessimistic about this trend, because I'm someone AI allowed to take on something new. I'm a pure science and engineering type, with no artistic sense at all, and without AI, I almost certainly would never have started YouTube. Making thumbnails, generating images, structuring the content, even producing English versions, things I used to think were beyond me became possible thanks to AI. The semiconductor knowledge itself comes from 31 years of accumulation, and AI can't replace that. But the means of delivering that knowledge to many people, AI expanded that dramatically. That's exactly why there's one thing I want to recommend. Try agentic AI. Seriously, at least once. Before debating whether AI will take your job, find out how far AI can actually go within your own work. Just that alone is worth a lot, I think. You don't need any complicated theory. Start by handing over one routine task from your day. Once you actually use it, you start to see both work where you think a human is still needed and work where you think AI is already enough. Between people who have that instinct and people who don't, the gap in 5 or 10 years could be large. AI is a technology that takes jobs, and at the same time, a technology that lets more people take on challenges. Let me summarize. In the first half of 2026, design industry bankruptcies in Japan hit 40, up 166.6% year on year. 90% were small operators with fewer than 5 employees. What AI replaces isn't the occupation, but the routine work inside it, and the reason to pay quietly shrinks. As one engineer, I feel this trend won't stop. That's exactly why I'd say try it yourself and see. That's all for today. I'll keep bringing you semiconductor news and analysis. So if you found this useful, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. This has been Ty on Semiconductor News Decoded.